My name is Bill VanGorder, and I'm the past chair and senior spokesman for CARP Nova Scotia. Pleased to host this event today, and it will be recorded. All of you who are registered will get the link in the next few days. We have to put it together, and that always takes a couple of days. And then it will be sent to you by email. We'll also post it on our CARP Nova Scotia website and on our CARP Nova Scotia Facebook page, and it will also be available in a link from the CARP National page. So lots of ways of seeing it again, refreshing your memory. If you have to leave early and miss something, you can come back and watch it, or you can share it with friends and families. And we generally find that over twice as many people watch the reruns as watch the original. Always seems to be the case. So happy to be here today and to introduce to you the chair of the Nova Scotia CARP Financial Securities Committee, Advocacy Committee, Roy Hayward. Roy?
So on behalf of CARP Nova Scotia and my committee, as Bill just mentioned, I welcome you to this webinar on scams and frauds. Unfortunately, these topics are in the news more and more, and I always hope that the news on this stuff will lessen, but it seems to get worse every year. And this is the third year in a row that we've had this webinar for seniors. And we always do it during the Fraud Prevention Month, which is March in Canada. And I just heard recently that across Canada, over $600 million reported as lost in scams and frauds last year. And as we know, many frauds and scams aren't even reported. So we know the losses are much higher than that. So it's really frightful that this continues. And with the improvement, I call it improvement in artificial intelligence, it's now even easier for fraudsters to get money from us. So the purpose of this webinar is to bring awareness of this growing problem to as many seniors as possible. So I want to send it back to Bill, who's our moderator today. And Bill has a number of titles, but he is, I call him our advocacy spokesman for CARP Canada. So Bill, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Roy, and welcome everybody. And I'm very pleased to introduce our panel today, each of whom is going to make a short presentation, and then there will be an opportunity for questions at the end. We would ask you to put your questions in the chat, and that way I can see them and pass them on to the panelists. So I'm going to introduce all three of the panelists now, and so that we can get right into their presentations later on in the hour. So the first will be Corporal Mitch Thompson. He's a 10-year member of the RCMP, served both in Manitoba and here in Nova Scotia. He's currently an investigator with the Nova Scotia RCMP's Commercial Crime Section, and in that role, he's been involved in the investigation of major frauds, currency counterfeiting, and mass market frauds. He's also a member of the Nova Scotia Partners Against Fraud, a working group of various organizations dedicated to identifying and combating fraud trends in the province. We'll hear from Mitch in just a few moments. The second is Dianna Burns. Dianna is a lawyer whose private practice focused on estate planning, real property, and small business matters. She joined the Legal Information Society of Nova Scotia in 2022, and she's currently completing a Master's of Law at the Schulich School of Law at Dalhousie. For those of you who don't know about the Legal Information Society Nova Scotia, it's a charitable organization that provides Nova Scotians with information and resources about the law, and it's been doing it for over 40 years. Their goal is to provide people with peace of mind through tools to avoid or manage legal conflict, and in this way, Nova Scotians are empowered to identify, prevent, and solve legal issues. Our third speaker will be David Harrison. and he's the Investor Education and Communications Officer with the Nova Scotia Securities Commission. He's responsible for the development and execution of all investor education programs, as well as external communications for the Nova Scotia Securities Commission. David has a journalism degree from the University of King's College and an advanced diploma in public relations from the Nova Scotia Community College. And when he's not educating Nova Scotians about investing and fraud, he enjoys reading, writing, fantasy sport, spending time with his family, friends, and his chocolate lab, Sandy. And I hope that maybe Sandy will join us during David's presentation. So thank you to all three of our panel members, and Mitch Thompson, Corporal Mitch Thompson, I'd ask you to begin, please.
Certainly. Thank you. Everybody can hear me okay? I'm testing on the new headset. Good. Thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to talk to everybody. And let me just see here. Does that show? This is my first time using Zoom, so you're gonna have to bear with me. Does everybody see that?
Can see it. It's not, if you turn it to slideshow, yeah, then we'll see it even larger. Yeah.
Perfect. There we go.
There it is. Perfect. Yes, thank you.
So I thought today what I'm going to talk to everybody about is kind of like the scams that we see, mass market frauds and all this kind of stuff that affect everybody tend to have very similar aspects to them. And so I thought I'd go over kind of what those general aspects are, just to give you a broad knowledge of how to identify maybe if you were in a fraud or the beginnings of a fraud, so that you can take steps to get out of that situation before it escalates into something where you've lost money or been victimized. Basically, the way that most frauds start is through some sort of contact. So I'll just give a brief overview here of what the breakdown looks like. Sorry, I'm just missing my notes here. 1 second. Right. So, so in most scams, basically most scams, you have contact is made through a variety of different ways, and we'll go over that. The scammers will then use emotional manipulation techniques to pull you into the scam. The importance of secrecy is stressed to isolate you from people that could help you in the scam. And not in every situation, but in many of these situations, there's some level of infiltration. So these scammers infiltrate your personal data, financial accounts, and using them for your own purpose, for their own purposes. And the important thing to remember, and this is kind of something that I say for everybody, is everyone, regardless of age, education level, socioeconomic background, gender, whatever divisive grouping you want to do, is susceptible to being scammed. Fraud is one of the most common crimes committed against Canadians, and probably the crime that you're most likely to become a victim of in Canada. So I always like to put that out there. If you are the unfortunate victim of a scam, you're not alone in that. So contact. So how do scammers make contact with people? There could be an unexpected phone call. So scammers can spoof numbers to look like a local number or to appear to be from a legitimate business or a government entity. The big thing to remember is that if you did not make the call, there's no way for you to know who you're talking to. There's just no way to verify who's on the other end of that call. Sometimes you'll get a legitimate looking email. It may come from a compromised account, so they've gotten access to an actual business or an actual person's account. Or it could have subtle alterations. So a big one we see is that they'll use a capital I in place of a lowercase l. So if the name of a business has a lowercase l in the name, they'll flip it for a capital I. It looks the same, but it's actually a completely different email address, and you're not communicating with who you think you are. You may get an alert text message, such as this example here that we put a press release out back in January. It may contain a link for you to follow or enter your banking information or your personal information. You might get a pop-up on your electronic device So on your phone, your tablet, your computer, it might say your computer has been locked or has been compromised and provide a phone number to call, and that number is connecting you directly with the scammers. You might come across an online ad for services or employment. Employment scams, they tend to do a lot of phishing for victims on Facebook. They'll post into community groups looking for work from home jobs. Or they'll talk about investment opportunities using fake AI videos where popular members of the community are telling you to do an investment. In person, this is less common, but still pops up from time to time. So this is very common with service scams. So like water filtration contract scams or roofing scams that we've seen in the news recently. So this is just high pressure sales tactics at your door to try and get into your door and get you to sign up for something that you don't intend, you never intended to pay for. So emotional manipulation, this is the big part, and this is why everyone is susceptible to scams. Scammers will manipulate your personal feelings to override logic. So, you know, it's the idea of using these big feelings to engage the quote unquote lizard brain and prevent you from thinking critically about a situation. There's often a feeling of urgency. A time limit is often imposed for whatever reason. So the big thing to remember is if you're forced to act quickly, you're less likely to notice obvious warning signs if you were taking time to think about what was happening. So this can look like it might create excitement over a perceived payday or investment opportunity, concern over the well-being of a friend or a family member. This is particularly prevalent in the grandparent scam. A fear of consequences or legal repercussions, confusion around unfamiliar terms or technologies, especially when we get into investment scams that deal with cryptocurrency. I have a very base level understanding of cryptocurrency, and people could bamboozle me quite easily. They could say whatever they want, and I probably believe them. A big one is love for the person committing the fraud, making it easier to deceive you. But this is a big one we see in romance scams, which actually is one of the, I think in the top 5 for scams affecting seniors in Nova Scotia and in Canada. They build a relationship so that you trust and care about this person, and they use that trust and that care to manipulate you to believe that they couldn't possibly be scamming you because they're your romantic partner. And then to escape any kind of consequences for what they're doing, you'll see a lot of guilt and shame. This is kind of more of a pervasive thing in society, unless maybe something that they put on you, but there's a lot of guilt and shame for falling to being a victim of a fraud, which is why we see very low reporting numbers when it comes to frauds in the policing space. Secrecy is a big one that they use to avoid detection, because if they can, they rely on secrecy to operate, and how they get you to agree to that depends on the type of scam. By isolating you from your support system, scammers keep you from getting an outside perspective that might point out red flags that maybe you aren't seeing yourself. And so what I have is it's kind of like, now I've written this and I'm not Shakespeare, but this is kind of some common phrases that I've seen in investigations that have come across my desk or other members' desks. So things like, you can't tell anyone I'm helping you, the real fraudsters will get away. We tend to see this in like bank investigator scams, or where they're recruiting the victim to help them investigate the fraud. I can make this go away, but only if you don't tell anyone. I'm the one dealing with this file or case, so only speak to me. Don't tell anyone else about it. And this is a big one I've seen recently. An employee at your bank is helping the fraudsters, so you can't talk to them. That's to keep you from going and getting expert advice that might help you in a situation. They'll get. I was recently involved in a file where the victim was instructed to lie to their teller about why they were withdrawing money. If you go to the police, I'll send this to all of your friends and family. This is something we see a lot in what they call sextortion, where a person is manipulated into providing an image to a fraudster, and then the fraudster threatens to send that image to friends and family unless some sort of extortion money is paid. In romance scams, you might get, oh, your friends are jealous of our relationship, or they don't understand what we have. The whole point around these is to isolate you from your support groups so that you don't recognize what's going on. Infiltration, this is one that, so it doesn't happen in every scam, but scammers might use personal information obtained from you to answer password reset security questions and gain access to your bank accounts or email accounts. And this is information that might just come about naturally. You might not even realize that you're providing it in a conversation, say with somebody over chat. I mean, how many people's security questions are their mother's maiden name or the name of the pet they grew up with or their first car, or their first girlfriend or boyfriend or something like that, right? And these are all things that could naturally, very naturally come up in conversation without you even realizing that you're providing security question answers. Scammers might also use the personal details that they learn about you to impersonate you to live agents on the phone. This is known as social engineering. So if they get enough information, they can call up the bank and kind of trick the bank and wheel and deal them into getting access to your account just because they know a few details about you that is maybe more intimate than a random stranger on the street might know about. The one we've seen a major uptick in, and the one that I really want to zero in on here, is the installation of remote access software. So this might be something like AnyDesk. I don't like to call out particular programs by name because it's not their fault that they're getting used for this. So we'll just refer to them as remote access software. So this is, a scammer will pretend to be some sort of technical support and get you to install software on your computer or your tablet or your phone. And then once that's installed, I have a little graphic here to help explain the situation. A scammer then uses the software to access your personal devices, usually without your knowledge. For example, we have a file here in our unit in which a victim, we believe, downloaded remote access software onto their personal phone, and the scammers were accessing it at night when the victim was asleep. So, and then deleting all record of the fact that they were in the phone overnight. So a lot of people believe that, they have two-factor authentication set up, and that's going to help protect any unauthorized transfers of money or anything like that. And this is when, if you're not familiar with the term, this is when, say, if you want to send money to somebody, the bank, or you're trying to log in, the bank or credit card company or whatever it is, has to send you a text message or an email or a phone call or something like that. And then they provide a code and you put that code in and it lets you log in. So it's a second layer, two factors of authentication, the password and this special code that only lasts for a limited amount of time. Unfortunately, with remote access software, because the scammers have access to your personal device, they can completely bypass the two-factor authentication. In the situation in the file that we have, our victim had two-factor authentication on their bank account, but when the scammer was accessing their bank account information at night, the special code would get texted to the phone, the scammer would receive that, they'd input it, move money out, and then delete all of the messages and any evidence that there was anything going on, all before the victim even woke up. And this is how they get access to your credit card information. Yeah. So, and often they'll transfer out very large sums. So what can you do to protect yourself? That's a big question. Now that we kind of have an understanding of generally how scams work, every scam is a little bit different, but they all kind of tend to follow the same sort of beats. So one thing I want to introduce you to is the idea of time and distance. So this is a tactical principle that's taught to RCMP members. So you're all getting a little bit of COP training today. So time and distance, it's a thing that we're taught. It's meant to increase the reactionary gap between us. So you create time and distance between you and the bad guy. And it allows for better decision making. In your life, I would say time and distance, recognize pressure and urgency. Don't make any rash decisions. Give yourself that time to think about what's going on, right? Don't adhere to any time restrictions. If they say there's a time limit, let it go. If they say something's going to happen in an hour, let that hour pass. Give yourself time to think. And then distance, use the time that you're creating to distance yourself from the scammer. You want to hang up on suspicious phone calls, examine unexpected emails, go to Google and search up names or phrases or experiences. For example, there's a very common extortion email going around. You'll get it and will say that they've recorded you on your webcam doing unmentionable things, and that if you don't spend money, they're going to send this video to everybody. But if you just highlight some of the paragraphs in that email and put it into Google, you'll see that this is a very common email that thousands of people get every day. You have not been recorded, it's a scam. So this is just that idea of kind of giving yourself some time. Call for backup. I don't go to serious calls alone, and neither should you. So, you know, if you're in a situation that you feel uneasy about, you got to trust your gut, call a trusted friend or a family member, talk to your bank, or reach out to your police of jurisdiction. I can tell you with certainty that I would rather have you call me and let me prevent a fraud than have to investigate you as a victim afterwards. And then finally, get informed. So I don't know if everybody remembers Schoolhouse Rock, but they famously stated that knowledge is power. That is absolutely the case in this situation. Understanding how specific scams work makes you less likely to fall for them. So the big thing we always say is the website for the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is a fantastic resource. They have a ton of easily readable, like a couple of minutes a page, where they detail pretty much every scam I have ever heard of. And they will talk about how it happens, common phrases that are used, and also how to prevent those kinds of scams from affecting you personally. And that's everything that I have.
Very good. Thank you very much. That was excellent, Mitch. Really appreciate it. And we will have some questions at the end, but I know you might have to leave us a little bit early. There was one question, maybe you could answer now. What was would you repeat the website for the national website for reporting?
Yeah, it'd be the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre.
Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. There
Yeah.
it is. I'll put that in the chat for people, and I'll put a link to it. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And now we'll go on to our next speaker, who is Dianna Burns. Dianna?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, fellow panelists. I'm just going to bring up my slides here.
Right. Very good.
Attending.
Excellent. Yep.
Okay. It's one of these topics, like you were saying at the top, that just keeps coming.
The meeting was, Jim was.
I will do something to mute that.
Should we sit down over there instead of standing?
Sure. Yeah.
Can they see us?
Yes.
There we are.
There we go.
Now you've got it
Okay.
back.
Perfect. All right. So, as mentioned, I'm here with the Legal Info Society today. I'm going to basically focus on powers of attorney, and I'm going to address those points there on the screen in a little more detail. And then I'm going to switch it up a little bit by referencing some of the situations we're hearing at LISNS. So LISNS provides an email, a call line, and a chat service for Nova Scotians. And we have been seeing some increases in fraud claims and requests for info and people looking for legal support. And so I'll give a little overview of what we're seeing at the charity. So powers of attorney. Powers of attorney, many of you either have them or have been advised to get one. They're a really useful tool in estate planning because powers of attorney allow you to appoint someone to basically handle financial property decision making in circumstances where you're not able to yourself, right? So that could be because you're traveling and certain documents or items of property have to be moved or sold while you're away. Or it could be in an enduring power of attorney that you've appointed someone specifically to also be able to act if you lose mental capacity. And so it's a very much promoted document in Nova Scotia as a part of a basic estate plan. So a will, a power of attorney, and a personal directive, which covers health decision making. So in powers of attorney, there's sort of two main terms, donor and attorney. The person who makes a power of attorney in Nova Scotia is called a donor, and a person who acts is called an attorney, whether they're a lawyer or not. That doesn't have any role. The important thing to remember with this terminology is that donor is used, but you don't donate anything when you make a power of attorney. You remain the owner of your property. You have full control to direct how your property is handled, what happens to it. And so it's intended to be a very powerful position. But when fraud enters, it also kind of plays this sort of double-edged sword of a person feeling like maybe if I have a power of attorney, I'm not allowed to do certain things or I'm restricted in some way. So we like to highlight those two pieces. And when we're talking about the restrictions, the only actual restrictions that a power of attorney instills in that relationship relates to what the attorney can't do, right? So by virtue of general legal principles, a power of attorney is not going to be able to allow someone to make a will for you, right? So your attorney can't cancel your will. Your attorney can't vote for you in elections. They can't make an affidavit, a sworn statement for you. So there's embedded general restrictions in powers of attorney, but they are also sort of under scrutiny for change because powers of attorney have become so popular. There's a big movement to actually broaden what is already a very broad category of actionable document. And so changing beneficiary designations, it's still required that a person would have to apply to court in order to change that, or you'd have to specifically allow it in your power of attorney so that they could change, say, an insurance designation on a policy of who will be beneficiary. So when we're talking about restrictions, there's some general embedded ones in powers of attorney that apply. There's also formalities, and formalities have been increased with 2022 amendments to our legislation here, where it more reflects a will's requirements. So you have to have two independent witnesses who are in the presence of the donor, person signing the power of attorney, does so with these other two witnesses. And so the idea here is that formalities, right, help restrict the use of fraud by double checking some initial things. You know, if it doesn't have two witnesses, that's sort of an early indicator that if it's made before 2022, it might be rolled over, grandfathered in. But if it's after 22, that's a sign that that power of attorney is not valid. So it's kind of a quick and easy way for entities like banks to confirm what they will take as instruction from an attorney based on the document. But there's even more changes on the way with powers of attorney. There's now potentially, there's a bill sitting at the legislature as we are meeting here today that's going to add electronic signatures and some other changes to formalities. So there's certain things to also be aware of. This is an area that's kind of being changed and updated because of other pressures, but the risk of fraud really stays sort of front of mind. Another way that they've built into the legislation to basically reduce fraud has to do with a monitor. So they basically included a new section in law that allows people to appoint someone who can be a support person. So they're not actually making and taking actions like an attorney. A monitor is someone who can be a protected supporter, right? So even if they don't get along with your attorney, they can still visit you and communicate with you. If you were, say, in care or you're in the hospital, they're going to have the ability to ask questions about your finances. They have to receive an accounting annually, if not more often, depending on what your power of attorney has actually included in the detail of the document. And they can also apply to court for you. So a lot of the changes relate to more people being able to take action if they suspect there's fraudulent activity or misuse or abuse with the power of attorney. They've also added really specific, broad requirements for attorneys to particularly account. That means they need to keep records, right? Anytime they use that power of attorney to close a bank account, open a bank account, pay a bill, change an insurance policy, negotiate on your behalf, anything that they're doing, selling a house, remortgaging a house, they have to keep records. They have to be able to produce those records. They have to be understandable. They have to be in a format that can be communicated to other people, right? So the days of, oh, well, I took out $500 cash from the account and I did all these things and I didn't keep receipts because I do it all the time. That's not going to be acceptable any longer. And it kind of surprises people sometimes that that ever was acceptable, but we have multiple cases that were heard before Supreme Court that say, well, you know, it's kind of vague in the legislation, so they've really tightened in on that. And there's also a requirement that an accounting be provided. And so that could be anytime a donor asks for an accounting. And it can also be annually or additional times in the document when you say have a person who has capacity issues, maybe they're not thinking as clearly as they used to, or they need more assistance to figure out what their property statements actually reflect, then they can have a variety of people like a monitor or like another support person listed in the document, or immediate family actually be able to receive that accounting and know whether or not, hey, there's something going on. It's time to go to court to ask a judge to make some decisions that will help support the donor because we think there's something going on. And following that transparency piece has to do with notice. So for a long time, people didn't really understand that most powers of attorney are actually effective immediately, as soon as you sign them. So the person could take the power of attorney, you provide it to them and say, don't use it until I tell you to. And then that person goes and starts using the power of attorney, taking out credit in your name and doing a variety of other things that have real harm to the person who's made the power of attorney and trusted that attorney. And so we've now got these notice requirements in the legislation. So as soon as a power of attorney starts to act, and this is whether it's an old power of attorney, right, that was made 2005, and it's only being used now, they still have to follow these accounting and these notice duties when they start to use the power of attorney. So written notice has to be provided to the person who made the document, the donor. You have to provide to a monitor if there's someone named there. You have to provide it to anyone that's listed in the document and some other parties you can see on the screen there. And basically the idea is the transparency expected for attorneys is very, very much increased compared to what it was pre-2022. And the access to courts by a variety of people, the expectations on attorneys, they've all increased and broadened and really tried to make sure that there is a better way for people to double check things in advance. Prevention, really thinking, hey, this tool, this power of attorney is really helpful in so many ways. But because it's so helpful and it's so powerful, it does have a lot of embedded risks. So those 5 points are ways to kind of check, is this power of attorney, does it meet the law? Is it filled out properly? Are they trying to do something they're not actually allowed to do because it's a restriction? When I ask the attorney for records, are they giving them to me? And have they actually told me they're starting to use the power of attorney? Have they actually given notice? And so it kind of leads into the last couple of slides where there's a few things we're seeing on the rise. The first one, powers of attorney that are too general. So for a very long time, powers of attorney were really restricted by the legislation because it could be a very broad document, so it could do a lot of things, but there was not a lot of opportunity to raise concerns. A donor, if they lost capacity, didn't have the ability to have other people appointed to look after them, had to involve the public trustee. A lot of people didn't have the ability to show that they were allowed to go to court to help out. It was really restricted. And what has happened now is the power of attorney legislation has included some direct examples because of prior situations, because of cases before the court. They've basically said, hey, here's a whole bunch of changes, and this is to guide you when you're making a power of attorney to consider, I might appoint a family member to be my attorney, but maybe I want to include some specific wishes. Maybe I want to make sure that my attorney has to consult with me before, the example, they sell the family home. I have worked with a financial planner. I should have the funds to be able to stay in my home with care for at least this period of time. And so before my power of attorney is allowed to just generally sell my home, I'm going to build in some specific clauses to say you're not allowed to take that action unless maybe you consult this other person, maybe they have to meet some threshold test, like my assets have now gone to a certain percentage. There's so much flexibility and detail you can build in, and it depends on how much you actually care about certain things, right? Some people have different priorities. And what we find is that because powers of attorney are so powerful, their priorities are not necessarily being put into the document. And you can do it. You can customize it as much as is going to work for you. And we have several court cases that tell us Nova Scotia judges will listen to what you say. If you document it, they will follow it. They have overturned decisions. They have taken steps where someone pre-plans and then an attorney comes in and does something different that harms or causes them to suffer in some way. There is a response that the courts can give. There was a mention about door-to-door sales. We're getting actually a lot of people reaching out through sort of as everything that was just mentioned by Corporal Mitchell, Corporal Mitch Thompson. We're getting a lot of people who are actually saying, hey, we're being approached at our door for donation requests. I think that they've taken my information and they're using it for something else. I signed up or gave a deposit for a fake business, I think, because I can't reach them, or they want more money and they won't show back up. So all of those things mentioned previously, we're seeing now more in Nova Scotia. As our property values and our homes have increased, we're seeing more fraud claims by homeowners, because the piece that has been so popular, say in Ontario, that has moved east now in the last 3 or 4 years, and particularly this last year, are companies that come up with these long-term service contracts. They may or may not get a license under the Consumer Protection Act to be allowed to even do it, but those licenses are not rigorously reviewed. And so they come in and they have these financing agreements, sometimes allegedly, fraudulent signatures added, and they are able to register it on your property title. So what we're seeing that's happening, and it's not as big a problem yet as in Ontario, but it's made its way here, is that if they can get enough information about you and enough unsavory characters to act on that information, they can take a contract and they can register on title a personal guarantee, basically a way to then interfere like a collateral financing agreement with your title. And that's the biggest risk. The biggest risk is that your title to your property, your ownership to the property, whether you have a mortgage or not, is also interfered with by this service contract, and then they want to sell your home in execution, in satisfaction of that judgment. So we're starting to see this. The title insurance companies have come out with a lot of products to kind of offer to offset it, but it's something to be very aware of, especially as our properties, we used to be able to get a house in Nova Scotia for $75,000. Now it's the same exact house, $375,000 5 years later. So keeping an eye out for those pressure tactics, that's exactly how we're seeing it done. They want an answer immediately. They come to your door. You don't need to answer your door. If you didn't ask someone to come and introduce a product to you, you do not need to speak to them. If they're coming to your door, if they don't have a brick and mortar business you can visit, if they won't give you hard copy documents, let you look at them in your own time, let you consider it, let you speak to other competitors. Radon is an issue. Water quality, these are issues. HVAC, heat pumps, they're issues. But there's many legitimate businesses and companies you can check through Better Business Bureau and through some other ways to make sure that this is a company that you can actually do business with, that they're actually legitimate. And then the last two items, and I'm sure we'll hear more about both of these in the following presentation too. Artificial intelligence. We're getting people who are saying that they're hearing the voices of their family, calling them, asking for things. What do they do? How do they check whether something is legitimate? I guess the key piece we want to make clear, and I think will probably be also repeated throughout this hour, is that artificial intelligence, just by me speaking, technically, if this was then put through various large language models, could create me saying things. And this has become used by fraudsters specifically to get to the heart of how can I take advantage of this person? Maybe I'll pretend to be someone. Maybe I'll try to make an application for credit through a questionable creditor. Those are all ways that just even answering the phone and engaging in conversations with these individuals can put you at risk. So if you don't know the number, if you are not expecting a call, you don't need to take that. You don't need to risk that. And then the final one we're getting a lot of is all of these cryptocurrency scams. And we're especially concerned about this as a not-for-profit charity because we see, just like housing, just like the Residential Tenancy Act not being followed, as the desperation and the need to find a home, to move in, the need to regain losses that have been made, people will throw money in risky ways like fake deposits for residential tenancies to try to get in and secure a position first and last month's rent, which is illegal in Nova Scotia. People will pay that because they need to get into a home. What we see with cryptocurrency, people are reporting to us, well, this happened to me and I need the money and this was a sure thing. Everything on the news, all these celebrities and people are talking about how valuable and how much a win this is. And if you're, not a person who has understood how addiction works, how gambling works, how this criminal enterprise works, it can sound like a way to cover your losses, a way to make some gains and to look after yourself. And so we're hearing from people, young and old, that are saying, $10, $20, $50,000. They've lost, some much more. And there is very little to nothing our courts can actually give you in the litigation environment. When you sue someone, you have to have a defendant. You have to have a person, an entity that you can actually use court rules against. They have to have property you can execute against, right? So just like those door-to-door sales contracts can execute against your home, when you're talking about things like cryptocurrency, there is no way to enforce any order you possibly could even get in Canada, in Russia, in Belarus, in various other countries. And so the fact of the matter is, this is a collapsing type system built on crime. And we're seeing people who cannot afford to lose that money falling into this trap where they're throwing funds into something they think is a legitimate investment opportunity because as desperation grows, job loss, people are saying things, they really believe what is told to them on blog posts and a lot of the finance people that are questionable, that are not licensed, etc. And so it's something we're really unfortunately seeing a huge increase in and really trying to highlight to people, even if it's not you, people are paying their families' bills because they've lost the money. There's a risk of homelessness, in housing insecurity, and you're helping out now your family members because they're victims of this. So it's really keeping communication open. Very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dianna. That was very complete, very interesting, and I think some areas that many people were not aware of, and I would also remind people that your organization is there to help and advise. And I know it's been around for over 40 years, but not always as well known as you or I would like it to. So excellent. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to David Harrison. And I remind everybody, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat so we can ask them at the end of David's presentation. So David Harrison, take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Bill. And thank you again for the invitation to speak again this year. So as Bill said, my name is David Harrison. I'm the Investor Education and Communications Officer for the Nova Scotia Securities Commission. I'm going to share my screen there now with that up there. So the Securities Commission is the securities regulator here in Nova Scotia. We regulate investments in the province as well as any person or entity connected to those type of products here in the province. That also currently includes some types of crypto, as Dianna mentioned. We will be getting to that partially as well. But we're going to start out by looking at some of the numbers around investment fraud here in Canada in the last number of years. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, which Corporal Thompson mentioned earlier, releases, not only do they collect fraud information and reports and help out with fraud prevention materials, they also provide fraud statistics across Canada every year and actually monthly as well. So for their latest report came out earlier this year, reporting on what was reported to them in 2024. And according to their reports, in 2024, Canadians reported to them and law enforcement $310.5 million in losses to investment type frauds here in Canada. That was up slightly from the $309 million loss in 2023 and up considerably over the previous 2 years in 2022 and 2021. So we do continue to see a vast amount of money lost to investment fraud in Canada. Here in Nova Scotia, during 2024, reported to the CFAC was just over $3.6 million lost for investment fraud here in Nova Scotia. And that made up 41% of all reported fraud losses to the CFAC during that year. That was actually down slightly from 2023, which is actually somewhat surprising to us, considering the massive amounts of people still reporting to us during that year. And as you can see, it was nearly double to what was reported in this province in 2022. And when it comes to seniors and people 60 plus reporting to the CFAC, in 2024, 60 plus persons reported $110.9 million in losses to reported investment fraud in Canada. Again, slightly down compared to 2023, but still very prevalent, very much on the rise compared to previous years. And in Nova Scotia, the losses to 60 plus persons was just over $1.5 million. Again, slightly down from 2023, but again, almost triple what was reported in 2022, as we do continue to see seniors being a large target for fraudsters peddling investment frauds and investment scams. Also, as Corporal Thompson said, investment fraud is believed to be vastly underreported. It's believed only somewhere between about 5 to 10% of fraud is actually reported to the CFAC and to law enforcement and regulators. So if those numbers are accurate, those estimates are accurate, it's probably around that $310.5 million that was reported is probably closer to around $6.2 billion in actual losses. And the $3.6 million reported in Nova Scotia is probably closer to around $72 million. So this is obviously a very serious problem, not only with the numbers that are reported, but if those numbers are actually in the billions and high millions of dollars here in the province, we are seeing considerable losses by people in Nova Scotia and coast to coast. Oh, did those not come up? Here in Nova Scotia, three of the most prevalent types of investment frauds that are being reported to the Commission here by Nova Scotians include pig butchering scams, the use and targeting of unregistered websites and trading platforms to Nova Scotia investors, and the use of impersonation scams. So I'm going to talk briefly about all three of those, about how we've seen a dramatic rise in all three of them, how they work, and how you can potentially spot them to potentially avoid them. Pig butchering scam, according to the FBI, in 2023 alone, it was estimated that around $5.6 billion was lost to pig butchering scams to Americans in 2023. And it's also estimated in around the globe, approximately $80 billion or more has been lost to pig butchering scams up to the beginning of this year over the last number of years. We're not immune to that here in Nova Scotia. In Nova Scotia, we have reports to us specifically of people of Nova Scotia losing in the millions of dollars combined to these types of scams. And we do continue to see them being reported to us on a weekly basis, essentially over the last number of years. How pig butchering scams typically work is you'll receive a unsolicited message, whether it be by text, by social media app or social media website, or by a dating website or dating app, should you be using those. And the person contacting you, unsolicited contact, will try to develop a relationship with you, whether that be a romantic one or just a personal relationship. The unsolicited message may look like a wrong number, for example. You may receive wrong number texts occasionally, and if you were to answer those and actually try and talk to this person, as they try and do, they're very good at it. It's actually sometimes their job, or they're being forced to do it. If you end up doing so, you may end up, unfortunately, become a victim of a pig butchering scam. And how this works, if they are successful in developing that relationship with you, somewhere down the line, could be weeks or even months later, because this is typically a long con, and the person will try and develop trust with you, an actual bond with you. That person will at some point mention that they have recently made considerable amounts of money investing in some type of crypto asset or using some type of crypto trading platform. And then they will try and talk you to investing as well by using techniques and terminology around everyone to use a little more money these days. Inflation is so high, the cost of living is so high. And then they'll try and talk you into investing small amounts originally, say something around, just invest $100 or $200 to get started. Not a whole lot of risk involved in there. And maybe you'll make considerable amounts of money just by putting that small amount up. And if they're successful in getting you to actually invest, they will send you a link to an online platform or get you to download platform software to your computer or to your mobile device. And it will actually assist you in doing so, should you need that help doing so. You'll deposit your $100 or $200 and buy some type of crypto asset. And again, they will usually walk you step by step to help you do so. Generally, a week or two later, you'll take a look at your account balance, or you receive an email or a text or a message saying that $100 or $200 you originally deposited has grown into $1,000 or a couple thousand in a very short period of time. And then your friend will say, wow, look, you deposited $100 and now you have $1,500 in a week. I think if you deposited $1,000 or even more than that, you'd be on your way to $1 million by now. And they'll use, again, those psychological tactics to try and get you to deposit more and more money onto the account. What you don't know, of course, is that everything that you're being shown is completely fake and made up. There is no platform. There is no actual investment. All of the numbers you're being shown are completely false. Nothing is real. But despite that, most people don't clue on that, unfortunately. And they will continue to invest on the platform, being shown tremendous growth in their investment. If people do not have money at hand to invest, they will often be talked into maxing out credit cards, taking out lines of credit, or borrowing money from family members to invest on the platform as they continue to show tremendous growth in their account balance. Eventually, everyone will want to withdraw some of that money. And a lot of the times they'll want to withdraw that money to pay off the massive amounts of debts they've rung up to deposit in the first place. So they'll put in a withdrawal request through the platform, and then they'll be told that to withdraw their money, they need to pay some type of tax or fee. Again, this is completely made up as well. But if you're looking to withdraw $50,000 to $100,000 or more, which a lot of the people in these scams, that's what they're looking to do, they have no problem paying a $500 or $1,000 fee, thinking they're going to get $100,000 out of it anyway. But even if they pay that fee, which again, completely fictitious and made up, no withdrawal will be processed. And typically at that point, they'll be locked out of the platform. The friend they've been speaking to will completely disappear and ghost them. And unfortunately, they'll never see that friend or see their money ever again. As I said, we've had millions of dollars of losses to these types of scams here in Nova Scotia, including individuals that have lost in excess of $300,000 alone for themselves. And what's even more harmful, a lot of the people that are investing in these scams, as I said, are taking out lines of credit or other debt to do so. So not only are they out the money they deposit on the account, on the platform, they're also now owing a bank or a lending organization tens of thousands of dollars that they probably don't have. One of the other types of scams we've seen a considerable amount increase in Nova Scotia in the last number of years is the use in advertising of unregistered websites and trading platforms that people use to either trade crypto assets or sometimes more traditional assets such as stocks and other or traditional securities. For example, CFAC released a statistic late last year where they're saying about more than 50% of the investment fraud reporting to them in Canada since 2019 has been connected to fraudulent crypto trading websites. And here in Nova Scotia, our enforcement have noticed around a similar similar number. About 50% of the complaints to our commission enforcement department have been related to fraudulent crypto sites. And these fraudulent sites are being advertised on social media, forums, Reddit. They're also taking out Google ads and other advertising ads to draw people into them. They're also soliciting people by email, text message, any way they can connect with you to try and get you to invest by using their unregistered fraudulent platform. And to try and raise awareness of these unregistered platforms, last year during fraud prevention, one more thing before I do that, we've been trying to warn people about these fraudulent sites for a number of years, including last year, for example. We issue alerts and cautions to the public whenever we have information that someone in the province has used an unregistered site or an unregistered site is soliciting investments for Nova Scotians. That has ended up, it's costing Nova Scotians considerable amounts of money. For example, in 2024, we issued 24 investor cautions, which can be found on the investor caution alert list on our website. It's updated as whenever we receive information that another or a site has unfortunately victimized a Nova Scotian or is targeting Nova Scotians. You'll see a number of logos and names of those sites on the screen, and you can again find that list on our website under the investment caution heading. So as I said earlier, to raise awareness of these unregistered platforms that are targeting Nova Scotians and causing millions of dollars in losses annually, during fraud prevention of last year, we launched our own fraudulent trading website, novacrypto.ca, which you can still find at novacrypto.ca. To create this website, we analyzed about a dozen of the fraudulent sites we've issued alerts and cautions for in the past. Basically stole the structure of their website. We took language, text, exact messaging from those websites, and put it together to create our unregistered trading website, novacrypto.ca. The main difference, of course, between our websites and theirs is we're not stealing people's money. We're not taking anything from them. Essentially, if you go to our website, which we actually advertised throughout Nova Scotia for a couple months last year, if you were to click on any link that is related to depositing money, creating an account, or downloading an app, because that is essentially when the scams begin, when they have your money, your name, or your information. You were redirected to the Nova Securities Commission website, where we reveal Nova Crypto is fake. If this is a real fraudulent site, you may potentially have been on your way to losing money or having your identity stolen, or even worse. And through our reveal page, we reveal the red flags that we've purposely placed on this website, as well as other information around investing in crypto and around how in this country now, crypto trading platforms and websites must register with securities commissions to legally provide crypto trading services. And we provide a link on our website and on the Nova Crypto Reveal page to a list of registered crypto trading platforms. There are currently 13 in this province and country. That list is growing steadily all the time. Whenever another site or platform becomes registered, we add it to the list. The Reveal page also lists basic information around crypto assets, how you can invest in them should you choose to do so as safely as possible to protect yourself and protect your money. The third type of investment fraud I want to talk about today that we are also seeing a tremendous increase in the last number of years and in 2025 is use of what is known as impersonation scams. Impersonation scams are when fraudsters use the name, image, or reputation of a famous, often affluent, often rich person to pitch investment opportunities or businesses or other types of investments. Now, for example, you may be familiar with something called deep fake videos. Deep fake videos are when they basically make it look like a person is saying and doing things that they have not done, but it makes it look very realistic and very real, and unfortunately has tricked a lot of people into giving up considerable amounts of money. For example, you'll see in the middle there that large rectangle that was taken, that's a screen capture from a video that was on YouTube for a number of months before YouTube security finally removed it. It's presumably depicted an interview between Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk. And in that interview, Elon Musk was talking about a quantum AI stock picking tool he had created that was 90% accurate and guaranteed to make people money. And in the interview, he was which was at the time supposedly only open to Canadian residents, offering to Canadians first access to this tool to make considerable amounts of money as initial investors. Anyone watching the video would potentially believe that it was real and everything in it took place and actually happened, when in fact it's a deepfake video creating an interview that never took place, talking about a stock picking tool that does not exist, and an investment that is completely fictitious and not made up. Despite Elon Musk's reputation taking quite a hit lately, he actually had nothing to do with this actual video. He was not involved with the process. He had nothing to do with the investment itself. And despite that, 445,000 people at least had viewed it before it was removed, and a number of the comments included people providing their contact information so they could be contacted to invest in the platform or the stock picking tool immediately, and is most likely that a number of those people probably lost considerable amounts of money. That video has been shared on different social media channels and different platforms pretty much daily the last number of years, as well as other videos of other celebrities and affluent people promoting certain similar type investment opportunities. For example, on the outside part there, those two images are of Arlene Dickinson. You may be familiar with her. She's a very well-known, successful Canadian businesswoman who appeared on the show Dragon's Den for a number of years on CBC. She posted these images on her LinkedIn page to warn people that fraudsters and scam artists were using her name and photo and reputation to pitch their investment opportunities and business opportunities as so-called legitimate investments, when in fact she had no idea that they were doing so, was not involved with them, and was not promoting them in any way. So people like Elon Musk, Justin Trudeau, Arlene Dickinson, Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett are used on a daily basis through deepfake videos, fake scam ads, social media posts, again, promoting investment opportunities, websites, crypto platforms that they have nothing to do with, that they're simply using their name and image to unfortunately take advantage of a considerable amount of people. For example, and they've become even more brazen in the last year or so. And CTV Ottawa did a story on that same Elon Musk deepfake video. It was posted on a different platform. I believe it was either TikTok or X on this story. But anyway, a couple in Ottawa saw that same video. I thought it sounded like a good opportunity, contacted the people behind the video, was in touch with a salesperson who talked them into investing in the platform, and they invested $177,000 in the platform and ended up losing the entire thing. It was their entire life savings gone overnight, unable to track, unable to reclaim. That's a horrible story, but unfortunately, what even became even more horrible is about a week later, same people that produced that Elon Musk deepfake video took the CTV newscast and made a deepfake video of that, turning it into a promotion for the exact same thing they were warning people about. For example, in the original CTV story, the man they interviewed that lost the money, he showed his bank statement showing $177,000 being taken out of his bank's account and wired offshore, unfortunately never to be seen again. In the deepfake video, they removed the minus sign and made it look like he had made $177,000 investing in this platform. So as I said, these fraudsters and deepfake artists are becoming so brazen, they're actually taking warnings, and whether it be newscasts or warnings produced by us or other law enforcement, and turning them promotional ads to unfortunately scam people with things that are actually supposed to protect them. So in the future, if you see an advertisement, whether it be a video, social media post, an online ad, an email, a text message from someone promoting an investment opportunity using a famous name, face, person. For example, in Nova Scotia, they've even targeted people using Sidney Crosby's name because they know he resonates in this part of the province, part of the world, excuse me. So be cautious with anything you receive in that way. Don't send any money unless you're 100% sure, and even then, give it another thought before even doing so. Just quickly going over some of the red flags of investment fraud that we see, unfortunately, more often than we'd like to. Not all red flags are prominent in every fraud, but typically you'll find at least one in every fraud that comes across. The number one red flag being you're promised high return for low risk. If you can remember that there's no such thing as a high return, low risk, or high return, no risk investment, you can avoid a majority of the frauds that are out there, because that is the number one hook and number one psychological trap that fraudsters use to lure people in. There is no such thing as a high return, low risk or no risk investment, because the potential or opportunity for higher returns always comes with higher risk. You can't have the opportunity for more returns go up without risk going up along with it. Anyone that tells you otherwise is most likely lying to you and looking to take advantage of you. So again, if you can remember, high return, low risk, high return, no risk, run away, you will avoid a majority of the frauds that are out there. Another red flag that is very prominent is high pressure sale tactics. You must act now, given no time to think it over. Short time frames. I must have your money tonight. This is a short-term offer. If you don't give me your money by 5 o'clock, you're going to miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And those type of psychological traps are used time and time again to get people to separate themselves from their money as quickly as possible. Because fraudsters don't want you to think about what you're doing. They want you to give you your money so they can get away from you as quickly as possible with as much of it as they can. So if someone is getting mad at you for asking too many questions or wants, because you want more time to think of it, again, that's a major red flag that this person is, again, looking to take advantage of you. Number 3, you're being given confidential or inside information. The real problem with confidential information is there's no way to verify it, no way to determine if it's accurate or not. And if it's inside information around a legitimate business, for example, a legitimate public business that someone is supposedly giving you inside information on trading information, for example, that may potentially be insider trading. And if you're found to engage in that activity, typically any money you make will be seized. You could potentially face criminal or other charges that include massive amounts of fines or potentially jail time, depending on the severity of the action. Number 4, there's no credible source that can validate the investment. Due to things like artificial intelligence, the ease to creating websites, deep fake videos, other things like that, people can create very lifelike and realistic looking investment opportunities that are completely fictitious, completely false, and don't even exist. People go to great lengths to create fake websites on businesses that are in a hot button industry, which right now is crypto assets, for example, that people, they think will want to invest in. So if you can't find a credible source that proves the existence of a person or an investment or a company that you're being offered investments with, do not invest in that. For example, just someone's created an investment, a business that you want to invest in, but you can't find them listed in the joint registry of stocks, or they have no other existence besides whatever website they're showing you. That's a major red flag that this does not exist. It's completely fraudulent. For example, a lot of those crypto trading websites, unregistered fraudulent sites, they'll list offices in downtown Halifax and business in buildings that exist, but those offices don't exist in those buildings. In fact, that's one of the red flags we placed on NovaCrypto.ca, placing Nova Crypto's office in our office here in Duke Tower. Last red flag to be aware of, the firm or advisor or person offering you an investment opportunity is not registered. To offer investment advice or to sell investments or provide investments to the public of Nova Scotia, you must be registered with the Nova Scotia Commission to legally do so. You can easily check that by using the National Research Database, Registration Database, on our website. As well, if anyone is offering you securities, they must have got a prospectus approved by this commission, which you can legally ask for. And if they can't provide it for you, that's a major red flag that they're offering you unregistered, illegal securities that, again, may be completely fraudulent and may end up costing you considerable amounts of money. Lastly, when it comes to finance, investing, anything offered to you in life in general, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So if you want more information on the commission, the National Registration Search Database, for example, link to that. Our website is nssc.novascotia.ca. If you have a question after today, or you're approached with fraudulent investment, or you have a complaint with an advisor or anything, other things related to securities investments, that's their general inquiries email. That goes to myself, and I can disseminate that to whoever the commission is best suited to answer your question. We're also on several social media channels, currently on X, maybe not much longer, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel with about 80+ short animated videos on basic to intermediate investing topics, including a lot of the fraud information we talked about today. And just earlier this month, we launched an Instagram channel and a Blue Sky account. So feel free to follow us on any of those channels. Look at our content, ask us questions. We'd be more than happy to answer them anytime. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you for your information and invitation. Pleased to answer any questions anyone has.
Good. Thank you very much, David. Appreciate all of that, and certainly some interesting information. And I wonder how many of us had heard of pig butchering before you told us about it today. We do have a couple of questions in the chat from some of you, and one I'll go first is that somebody tells us that they have no cell phone because they don't have cell service. They do buy online and using a desktop, but they keep being encouraged to download an app, and they want to know whether or not that is or could be a problem. David or Diana, do either of you have a comment on that?
Oh, sorry, I'm just reading the question again here.
Yeah.
It potentially could be, depending on the person you're dealing with. You want to make sure you're dealing with a legitimate business or salesperson or someone offering that type of service. Before downloading any app, always ensure that it's actually a legitimate app posted in either the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, whichever one you happen to use. But even then, we have seen scammers place fraudulent apps in those stores. So unfortunately, even that is not 100% safe these days. But always be sure that whatever you're downloading to your phone is a legitimate app. Do some research on it before downloading it. Oftentimes when people are scammed, they'll often put reports about it on whether it's forums or other areas, or potentially an organization like the RCMP, for example, may have issued an alert about that in the past as well. So always look out for those as well. Not sure if anyone else wants to add a little more to that. Or...
Diana, you have anything to add?
I mean, it's for what it's worth. There's nothing wrong with doing online banking using a browser, a secure browser that you follow the proper protocols with. The app idea can put you at risk, especially with those remote access technologies that we've had 2 people contact us about. And I will mention that AnyDesk, we have no problem pointing out fraudsters. It is incumbent on our banks, on our insurance providers, on the tools that they provide us, that they're safe, that they're following up and making sure that they're rolling out products that are safe for us to use, because at the end of the day, we're paying for these services, whether it's with our information and our actual banking fees and investment interest, that at the end of the day, I guess it's kind of a long way to say there's nothing wrong in continuing to do what you're doing, following the proper protocols. You don't have to use an app, especially if you don't use a cell phone and you're just accessing online banking through your PC. That there's nothing wrong with that.
Good, thank you. Mitch, anything else from you to add?
No, I think my fellow panelists here really covered everything that I would have said in that regard. I do have to apologize. I do have to jet. My strategic communications people double booked me today.
So, do I understand properly? We might be seeing you on TV later today.
Possibly. Yeah, I have to go talk to CTV right now. So
Good.
I do want to say, I just quickly want to mention, I want to thank Diana and David for their presentations. They were very, very informative, super awesome. And I just say, and thank you for inviting me and letting me speak. If in the next little bit, if anybody has any law enforcement or police related specific questions, Bill, please feel free to forward those on to me, and I'll get back an answer when I'm back in tomorrow.
We certainly will. Good. Thank you very much, Mitch. Appreciate you taking the time today. Thank you.
Bye.
One other question I have here. Somebody mentioned migrating homes and homes that were not migrated, and others asked what they weren't quite sure what that meant. How do you know if your home is migrated, and what does that mean?
Yeah, so I can take this one.
Yeah.
So basically, we still run 2 land registry systems here in Nova Scotia. So we have a migrated title system and the old registry of deeds system. And there's nothing wrong with having an unmigrated property, except it basically means that your title is still exposed to risks like people manufacturing deeds, that then taking those deeds and attempting to register them on the registry of deeds and attempting to claim a title interest against you or a portion of your property carved out in this deed description that then is on title and has to be dealt with. So again, this is a situation that's a bit unique. Nova Scotia is the oldest jurisdiction with our land registry. And so we have still a lot of leftover pieces, and there are still properties that are properly contested when they, without fraud, when they transfer into the migrated system. That's why when you hear things on TV sometimes about, oh, I bought this, or I thought I had this right, it could be that the migration of that property did not take place, or that they had thought that something was completed and it wasn't. So I was mentioning title insurance. A lot of the title insurance companies, Chicago Title, First Canadian Title, there's a bunch of them. They provide this extra service now where you can buy a title insurance property policy even if you've owned it for decades, whether there's a mortgage or not on it. Most of the cases, there's no mortgage, so your title is kind of open to risk. Again, that example of like long-term service contracts that are registered on title against your property, those things are all easier to do when your property is not migrated. And so migration basically takes all of your title interest, verifies it, and then it is secured after 10 years. So if someone comes along and says, oh, I own part of your title, they only have a limited period of time to do that. So migrating your title helps reduce that risk. There was a plan that has never been brought back up to have the government migrate all titles to the new system. For a long period of time, it's just been as you go to, say, get a chip reverse mortgage, or you go to put a home equity line of credit on your property, or you get a standard mortgage, then your property had to be migrated. So if you have title like that, your property is migrated. But if you have unmigrated title, it's probably because you don't have financing and it's paid off, which actually makes you a bigger target for people who are accessing our public registry. The land registry is public, and it has been accessed by people who use that information, not always for the best means. The difference is only a lawyer can register a deed. So they've tightened up once property is actually registered. It is on the system. If it's migrated, there's protections of who can actually file and change that title. So there's a lot of good reasons to look into migrating your title, and fraud prevention has been one of the reasons that has come up.
So what's the easiest way to check if you think your home might be in that position? What's the best way, easiest way to check?
Yeah, so I mean, if you have a lawyer you've worked with before, they can easily check the land registry for you. You can contact your local land registry and access your civic address and see what the title is registered as. Make sure it's what you think it is, right? That it's migrated, the proper names are on title. Sometimes there's surprises. You can check the registry. It's publicly available. Sometimes the registry staff will just do it for free. Sometimes they'll make you pay like $8.
Okay.
But that's it.
Good. Thank you very much. So those of us that live in very old homes, as I do in my 107-year-old one, maybe I should check the registry. Thank you. That's good. Well, we've come to the end of our time. If there are any further questions, please get in touch directly with our speakers or with me here at CARP, and we'll be glad to pass your questions on. Oh, one quick question just came in. Take the time to answer it, I think. It says, are joint partner trusts more secure? David, is that one for you, or is that Dianna?
I'm thinking that there's an alter ego trust that's been placed by property owners. They've rolled their property into a joint partner trust, sort of a part of estate planning, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
That's where they're coming from. Yes.
Yeah.
So security, it comes down to the deed issue. If you have a structured joint partner trust, it would be really a bar complaint against the lawyer if they did not migrate the property before they carried out that process. You need to have migrated property to transfer a title that's going to be rolled into joint partner trust, because there's also tax issues and other things. So I mean, I would say generally speaking, you did it at a reputable law firm, I would not have concerns. It should be migrated. The deed would be flipped into that trust name. It's not going to be in your personal name. So in a lot of ways, it is safer because the fraudsters are not going to be able to imitate you easily and alter the trust holding. So yeah, it's likely very secure that way.
Good. Thank you very much. Well, as we come to the end, Roy Hayward, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us today, and thanks to our panelists for great presentations. I just hope that everybody understood most of what was said today. I must say, I've been looking at this for years, and even I got confused with a number of the items that were brought up. I'll just do some more thinking on that. But just a reminder, as Bill said earlier, you'll all be receiving an email with this presentation. And also within the next few days or so, it'll be on the CARP Nova Scotia website. So thanks again, everybody. And Bill, you do a great job again. You did a great job again as a moderator. And we really appreciate everything you do for CARP. And of course, I know you're one of the original CARP executives in Canada. And so we thank you for everything you do, and we thank you especially for today, because your knowledge of the technical side of it is just fantastic. So thanks again, and thanks everybody.
You're welcome, Roy. Thank you. Good day, everybody.